Hello, welcome. This is Deborah Atkinson, and we're here just a couple of minutes early, you and I. And thank you to everybody who was here for several minutes. Actually, I've been on just kind of getting things set up behind the scenes, and I know some of you got here to save your seat, which is good because we have a really, really big group tonight. So if you got in first, awesome. And the doors may actually be shut for some people. So hang on if you're coming in late. But what I'm going to do is start right away at top of the hour. So we have just a few seconds left until we get there. And until that moment, just making sure everybody can see the screen. I haven't quite gone to full screen with the slides yet, so you can see a little bit of the background. And if you can hear me clearly, if you'd say yes and yes, that would really help me out. And I will just let you all know where we are represented from. We've got Northeast Ohio, Fullerton, California, Cleveland, Ohio, Maryland, Michigan, Punta Gorda, Florida, and Houston, Texas. And I'm getting some yes and yes. You can see and hear clearly. So awesome. We're in good shape there. We have clear and sunny weather. It's actually a very Indian summer day in Boulder, Colorado. So, and from Wisconsin, hello, Rancho Cucamonga. Seriously, is that a word? I hope I didn't slaughter it. Fredericton, Canada. Regina, Canada. Again, there, all the Canadians are weighing in right now. Calgary. Awesome. Okay, so Canada is in the house, everybody. Yes, can hear you. Nice to know. So awesome. New Jersey, Illinois. I feel like I'm at the Miss America pageant. Okay. Surrey, BC in Canada. Welcome. Awesome. Okay, so we are at the top of the hour. I'm going to rock and roll. I'm going to let you know somebody's raising their hand. I can't do a whole lot about that other than here's what I do. I put it down. So if you have a question, if you can put it in the chat box, and I have a feeling that might be what you're raising your hand for, is you're not sure where that chat box is. If you don't see it, you can type into the questions, because what I learned last night is sometimes I call it chat, and unfortunately you see it as questions, but that's where your box is. So you're in the right place, just where you can type in a comment, I will see it. And if you don't see it, you might see a little orange rectangle in your upper right-hand corner of your screen, potentially with a white arrow in it. If you click that, it will expand. And that would be a place for you to put your comments or your questions along the way. And I won't do a lot of pausing because we have a lot of content to go through. North Carolina is also in the house. So I'm going to move things around just so I can see really well. And then I'm going to go to full screen, and we're going to rock and roll here. Iowa. Well, of course, Iowa's in the house. Some of you may not or may not know, I'm an Iowa girl and was there for the first 49 years of my life. So I've been in Boulder just for about 4.5. And so I don't know what you call that. Iowa girl, mountain woman, something like that. All right, so you should be seeing my screen. I'm going to go full screen and we're going to jump right in. Thanks so much for being here, number one. This is, I know it can be a challenge to rearrange your schedule, be here in a class that somebody else set the day, the time, and the agenda. But I'm hoping you're here for the agenda and or you're listening later to the agenda, because first of all, I am always excited to talk about being 50 now, being 50 or 60 or 70 and aging in what is 2018 and beyond. There's never been a better time to do it. And we are right now, we're creating our own reality of what that looks like. It doesn't have to look like our parents, doesn't have to look like our grandparents for sure. And it doesn't even have to look like our aunts and uncles, or our older siblings. And I can say that because my two oldest siblings are 16 and 13 years older than I am. So, what I'm seeing there doesn't have to be true for me, nor does it for you. And so if my sister's on right now, I'm probably in big trouble, but so what's new? All right, this is the chat box. Whoever asked that, you're in the right place. we're going to talk about the after 50 strength training difference. And just for my interest's sake, I would love to know if you are already strength training. Go ahead and put a yes in the box. Or if you're not strength training currently, haven't been doing it regularly, I would love to know that. Put a no in. So I count regularly as you've been doing it 2 times a week regularly, and you have a plan. That is, I'm doing it. Great. Okay, so I'm getting a ton of yeses and some no's, but mostly yeses. Good. Some flipping 50 products like muscles in minutes. That's great. 4 to 5 times a week is a lot. So we're going to talk a little bit about mistakes you might be making, and that might be one for you. Orange Theory Fitness. We'll just talk a little bit about protocols and what you're doing, and if you're truly reaching the spot that you want to be reaching based on what your goals are. So that's really what today's all about. My goal is for you to leave here feeling like I've got tips that help me take what I'm doing or what I know I need to do, and I know what to do next. I know 1 or 2 things I can tweak, or 1 or 2 things I should go and ask for, or I'm going to begin, so that you have some confidence that what you're doing is very tied to the goal or the outcome, the transformation, the reason you're doing it. That's my goal. That no matter what happens, if you and I don't have a relationship after tonight, you feel like this was a win, this was so worth my time, because we have nothing more valuable than time, and that includes money. So if we're on the same page there, let's jump in. I will introduce myself very briefly. I realized 5 minutes ago that I always put a slide in and say, here's who I am, here's why you should listen, or, my hope is always that you're challenging anybody with a voice. Anybody who is at the front of a classroom, who is leading your personal training session, who is leading a group, who is on a YouTube channel, that you're not just flipping around finding channels and saying this is good, that you know why it's good and why it was designed specifically for you. Because a woman in midlife and beyond, her needs are different. You're not broken, but your needs are still very different unless you want to risk being broken. We've got to just be more conscious and critical thinkers. The road is narrowing a little bit about the latitude. We can't just do anything or do random exercise. So this is me. My hashtag is You Still Got It Girl. That's based on the first, or actually the second book that I've published for this age group, and primarily the first one for women in hormone balancing exercise. So a little bit about me, because you can really geek me if you want to do that at my about page at flipping50.com, all spelled out, no numbers. And I won't take a lot of time talking about myself, but I've got 34 years of experience. So from the professional side of things, I've sat on all sides of the desk, or the bench press, if you will. So I've taught at a university for 15 years, emerging personal trainers in kinesiology, taught them the physiology of fitness and how to teach it themselves to somebody else, and also taught exercise management, facility management, and motivation. And my biggest background, in addition to the kinesiology and physiology, is actually exercise, sport, psychology. So it's about the motivation between our ears to get us to actually make the behavior change. So when you're asking me, how do we get motivated? How do I stay motivated? That is right up my alley. So you're not getting answers on a whim. You're actually getting answers based on science. So for more information, but I do want you to know this. So if you're here and you have a special condition, arthritis, osteoporosis, maybe you've got or know somebody with Parkinson's, or cancer, or rehab, prehab, from joint replacements, I've worked with it all. I'm a medical exercise specialist, and I have as well as done my own sessions for not quite 34 years, because personal training didn't exist 34 years ago. But I have also supervised over the course of 7 years about 250,000 personal training sessions with my staff members. And I was in the building watching and observing sessions on a daily basis for that length of time. So I've learned a lot about what happens in a session, what doesn't happen, what should happen, and potentially what shouldn't happen. So there are a lot of stories. We won't go into that. But I've got a broad background, and I also train elite athletes. I'm in Boulder, Colorado, where some of the world champion triathletes in the world are living and training, and I myself am a triathlete. So I'm also a strength and conditioning coach. So quite a diverse continuum of people I've worked with. So depending on where you fall, I've probably worked with you. We're going to talk about the what, the why, and the how of strength training after 50 for vitality and energy, right? We're not necessarily, unless you're here for bodybuilding, you're probably in the wrong place if you are. That's really not my niche. It could be, but it's not where I'm spending time. I spend time researching hormones that influence exercise and exercise as it influences hormones so that we can more naturally find a balance in hormones, particularly from the age of about 45, depending on who you are, through 65 and 70, but we have them till death do us part. Cortisol and insulin are some of those hormones we all are going to have to deal with. So I want to let you know that we've also just completed, we're actually about week 9, but we've just completed an 8-week beta program called Stronger. And you may recall that I recruited on our Facebook page and our Instagram page, in our email subscribers list for people who were interested in it. They had a lot of latecomers who unfortunately didn't get in, requests to be in, but I want to share the results of that. Because as we're talking about, strength training, talking about what results happened from only asking people to do 2 times a week strength training, that added up to about 60 minutes, 60 to 90. And in most cases, it was 60 minutes per week. So we're really talking about 8 hours over the course of 8 weeks, 8 hours of strength training. What kind of results did we get? And I'll share them with you. So here's the playbook. All right. So this is our agenda for tonight, if you will. I'm going to talk and address these things as I promised. When you went to register, this may be one or more of these really the draw for you. Metabolism specific protocols. So you can let me know again if metabolism is a big part of the reason why you are strength training, or at least why you started, because sometimes the reason we start is not necessarily the reason we keep going. And that, by the way, is a sneaky little thing that we all hope as personal trainers and fitness professionals, that whatever reason you start, whether it's weight loss or tone or, less cellulite or better arms, sleeveless, that you stick around because you got 10 other positive outcomes and benefits that you didn't even know you were going to get. It's like the best 2-for-1 ever. So that's what I want you to focus on. So also, you now versus you younger, why your strength training program is not the same as the one you did when you were 20. The best one for you is not the one you did when you were 20 or 30 and potentially even 40. It's why it can be a challenge if you're in a class beside someone who is 20 years younger or 20 years older. Not that age is a limiter. That's not it. But there are differences in what you want to be doing. So when you know them, it makes it much more possible and safe for you to go into a class and or a group training and adapt it to your own needs. And that's how I'm feeling that, if you love what you're doing now, you could tweak it so that you get better results. And I know that's hard. If you have a favorite food, it's really hard to give it up. I have a lot of people who are giving up dairy because of joint pain, and they know that they feel better, or they will. I know that they'll feel better when they give it up. But cream in coffee is a real addictive factor, right? So that's a tough one. And, it's habit, right? You almost go to the refrigerator in just a trance, and you go about those movements and realize, oh my gosh, I did that again. I poured it. I was going to stop doing that and I did it. And that may be a part of what happens with your exercise. You by default, you walk in and you don't have a plan. So you go about the old thing that was just kind of a blueprint on your mind. So what I'm going to give you is a way to hopefully break through it and start to rethink. And it won't necessarily happen today or tomorrow. We're going to talk about the difference between metabolism and functional strength training. We need both, but if your goal is weight loss, then you probably want to do maybe an 80-20 rule. So you're going to do 80% so that you see and feel results, so that you will get motivated and stay motivated to continue the functional work. Sometimes the functional work has to be the first 20 so that you can move better without pain and feel good to do the metabolism boosters. But you want to look at, what are your goals specifically, and are you matching what you're doing to your goal? That's a big deal. So we'll talk just a little bit about machines, free weights, tubing, bands, body weight. Does that help, or does it get in the way, depending on what your goal is? The timing of workouts, the exercise sets, like how long between one set and the next set for the same muscle group, and how much timing goes into thinking about how much rest. And that rest happens both between sets. It happens between workouts of maybe the same day. If you have to split it up and do one in the morning and one in the night because you don't have the whole hour ever, who does? And or between workouts of the same week and the same type. So strength training day 1 during the week, how long do you wait till strength training day 2 during that week for the optimal result? And there is science about every single one of those. And I will tell you that, having been a personal training director, only about 10% of the programs ever abide by that for a woman who's in midlife. So you've really got to look at, was this program built for me? Or if there are men and women in it, and there are 20-year-olds and 50 or 60-year-olds in it, how can it fit everybody? And that's a great question, right? Sequences. We're going to talk a little bit about, reaching fatigue in a productive way. So we make the time that you have to spend, the very little and precious time you have to spend exercising, worth it, even if that's 10 minutes at a time. The system. So I'm going to take a step backward. I've got a lot of you saying, no, I'm not doing it regularly, as well as a lot of you probably, I'm going to just give you a guesstimate. It's probably about 60-40. So 60% of you in attendance right now are lifting weights regularly, and maybe 40% not, or not doing it regularly. That's kind of the response rate. It might be a little bit higher on the yes, I'm doing it. But I want to take a step backward and talk about the benefits. And this is the now and later I want you to think about, because some of them, the benefits we want, the thing that gets us out of bed in the morning, probably is more related to the energy we're going to feel that day, all day, and that we know it. Or it's about even before that part happens, because if you're not used to lifting weights or exercising regularly, you don't yet know that there's a big payback or perk in energy. So what gets us going is looking better, and maybe it's avoiding feeling, badly, or negatively about ourselves. So we know we want to feel better. We know we're tired of doing this. And those things are the things that get us out of bed in the morning. It also may be, it's a paid thing that you did, which is a group or personal trainer, which makes sense. Or you've got a friend waiting on a dark curb. You're not going to let her wait for you alone. So these are the benefits that happen both now and later in order to make what you want in transformation happen. So you can't have weight loss, you can't have better looking arms or thighs or belly if we don't have these changes. Number one, all of these systems and more, but I picked the most, or the biggest category is cardiovascular system. So that's basically your heart. So that's when you're doing something that makes your breathlessness, be more apparent, or your heart rate is elevated. And that's almost anything. Strength training does that, cardio work does that best. But for prevention of disease, increased enjoyment during physical activity that you otherwise want to do, which might be playing with grandchildren, or maybe for you it's golfing or it's gardening, but you're going to enjoy those things more if you're in a slightly better condition than those things or those activities. Your nervous system, and this is one that we don't always talk about, but it's one that now you and I are probably thinking more consciously about. But the nervous system related to cognitive improvement, so you function better as far as thinking processes, problem solving, creativity, awareness, meaning just you're more aware of your environment, you're more aware of how you fit into maybe your work scene or into a group of people working on something. You understand what your role is. You're not foggy, kind of the opposite of that. Memory, there's a decreased risk of dementia, mood disorders, including anxiety and depression from strength training. So I'm specifically talking strength, not just exercise. Your circulatory system benefits with improved blood flow, decreased tissue damage. Your skeletal system prevents fractures, boosts bone density, prevents osteoporosis. Your musculoskeletal system, so that is all the muscles in your body, we lose it a lot faster than we keep it or definitely gain it. And that loss starts to happen after the age of 25. That's when we peak. So just by Mother Nature alone, if we did nothing else, we just went about our lives of daily activity, no exercise, we would be losing at about 8 to 10% of our muscle mass total, whatever we put in the bank. We start losing it very easily decade by decade. And that's true no matter what, even if you're a regular exerciser, but you're not doing any resistance training, strength training specifically, either with machines or weights or tubing or body weight. But I just went down the continuum. So really lifting something heavier than you is probably a little bit better, specifically by the time we get to our age, so that you've spared some of those muscle losses and you have more of your lean. But the good news is, if you've lost some between now and when you were 25, you can get it back. You have to fight a little harder for it, but you can. Your endocrine system, and that last but not least is the one I pay most attention to in conjunction with all of these, and that is your hormone balancing. Your ability to change how you fat store easily or not, or you fat burn easily or not, is determined by your hormones. No longer do we believe it was calories ever, but when you're younger, metabolism is a little bit more on your side because you naturally have that muscle. As we age, we lose that muscle unless we are consciously trying to do something about it. And so many of us, when we were having families and a job and driving the minivan taxi and, in the heat of things, didn't necessarily have time to exercise. So, if you haven't, that can be a problem and something you want to address right away and start getting it back. What kind of expectations? So I want to set you up in the right direction right now. This is a typical outcome. And if you are following Flipping 50 and me, reading any of our blogs or listening to the podcast, watching YouTube videos, you've heard me say this once, if not more than that. Over the course of 4 weeks, if you are new to exercise, and this is really exciting for all of you virgin strength trainers right now, because you have the most to gain. The 4 pounds of fat loss and 3 pounds of muscle gain that are typical results over the course of 4 weeks for people starting a new program, and or for somebody who might be saying, yes, I'm just not doing it regularly, or who might look at tonight, something I present coming up, and say, I can really tweak my program significantly to get better results. For you, this is still true. If you make significant changes, you could still see this kind of change. So we notoriously compare this to dieting, and I don't like to dwell on dieting, but If you have longer, more to lose, you're going to lose it faster, right? At the beginning of a diet. Well, the same is true at the beginning of strength training. You will make progress a lot faster and you'll see those changes. So it's got to be a significant change. But losing 4 pounds and gaining 3 pounds of muscle, now the scale isn't going to change, right? So you're doing the math. That's 1 pound of difference. But how is that going to look on your body? Significantly different, right? Your clothes will fit differently. You're going to carry yourself differently. You will also already start feeling different. And probably you would come back and say, if you measured your calf, your thigh, your waist, your belly, your chest, your arms, shoulders, you'd come back and say, I've lost 4 inches potentially. And I pulled that bunny out of a hat. So don't hold me to that. In 4 weeks, right, that's the result. You can expect the same results continue for the first 3 months. So if you're doing math, you're way ahead of me. That's a 12-pound fat loss and a 9-pound increase in lean muscle. So again, the scale, how much did it change? Not drastically, right? But that's a big change in how you carry your weight and probably the size of your jeans, the size of or the number of notches on your belt. That's a major change. And I think we can all agree we're stuck on conditioning by the scale. How much we weigh seems to be our measure. We're getting better at looking at body composition, and I mean body fat, not BMI. That's not your number. What you want to be concerned with is what is my percent of body fat whenever you're doing your weight. That's important because you could be 50 years old, be the same weight that you were when you were 20, but if you haven't been weight training, there is a good chance that you've lost muscle. And so you're not wearing the same size jeans, not wearing the same size skinny jeans, or maybe not wearing skinny jeans, because not even at the same weight, the scale is not telling you the truth. So you've got to collect all the data. At the very least, do a scale and do inches. Ideally, do the scale and do inches and get that body fat done. Super important. So if you're weight training now and nobody has done your body composition, be sure that they do. Super important. Okay. So the most common wish list in You Still Got It, Girl, I wrote actually something different. Weight loss is generally number one, bone density is number two, and the third kind of goal orientation that I mentioned, if you have been a reader, if you've read You Still Got It, Girl, was performance. So somebody out here who might want to say, I want to play golf better, or I want to, I do 5Ks and I enjoy them, whether you love to finish really well or you just like to finish feeling really good and it's something you do for fun, maybe with your family or friends. So performance was the third group, but in here what I'm going to put is tone and or gaining lean muscle, because I know some of you may be here for that reason and you're somewhat a forgotten population. People forget because so many of the programs out there are often totally about body weight and fat loss, as opposed to thinking, my weight is fine and I'm actually on the lean side, but I am losing muscle mass. That feels most likely more dramatic to you. It may be happening in someone who is more overweight or a larger size person, but it's less visible. And so we're more concerned about weight loss or fat loss than we are about holding on to that lean muscle. And even if you are very lean and skinny or you're overweight, both have the same goal. Ultimately, we want to put on lean muscle mass. So it's important that I'm hoping that I realize it. So just a quick shot. Really you don't want weight loss, right? You want fat loss. That's your focus. So be very clear on that in your mind when you're saying it. Bone density, if that's a huge goal, potentially at this point it becomes a bigger one, because if you're listening, you're in your 50s, 60s, or you're 70, that potentially your mom had issues or she fell, she fractured. and she was fairly young, if that happened, then you're at more risk potentially because there may be a genetic piece. That doesn't mean it has to happen to you, but if you've, not been lifting weights, if you are on the lighter side, you're fair-haired and blue-eyed and fair-skinned, you kind of Norwegian looks, you're at greater risk. We know these things from science, just there are 8 to 10 things. Drinking a lot of caffeine, and by that I mean, say you drink a pot of coffee and you just have it on all day, whether or not it disrupts your sleep, it is disrupting probably bone density. And consuming calcium, or more importantly, absorbing it, depending on your source. Dairy is not the only source, and if you're not a dairy drinker or eater, that is okay. That was something we were led to believe, but really isn't true. We can get it from a lot of sources. We need the same amount. So knowing that a food is high in calcium does not make it a high calcium food. Two different things, so we're not going to go too deep into that today. But really the same protocol that looks at weight loss and helps fat loss builds bone density, both slow, heavy weight training and slightly lighter weight with power, with a small speed component, are both known to help boost fat loss and to build bone density. The tone can be different for someone who's what we call a hard gainer, meaning it's hard for you to put on lean muscle mass. You're losing it faster. 10 to 12 repetitions is a mass building protocol, which ironically, too many of us were taught right in our 20s when it was too easy for us to put on bulk. And that's why we got so alienated from strength training potentially when we were young, because we were doing a bulk building protocol. Everybody was. It was just the generic blanket 3 sets of 10. But if you're having trouble putting on lean, that is really what you want. That would be appropriate, at least when you progress to it. We don't necessarily start you that heavy. What I'm about to share with you tonight, so it's really important to me that I am pulling from science for everything I'm saying. And when we're using a PowerPoint presentation to put something in a slide situation and list 50 pieces, actually there's over 100 pieces of research. You couldn't read it if you wanted to, but in Hot Not Bothered, this book, there is a resource page in the back. Each one of these 99 flips, and I think I gave you 100 in here, each one of them has at least one research study, if not 2, 3, or 4 in some cases, that are the science that much of this content is built on. So this, you don't have to even purchase the book. If you like to hold it in your hand, I will send it to you for shipping. But you can actually go to flipping50.com/hot not bothered and get the PDF like now delivered to your inbox if you want it. So if you are kind of a prove it to me girl, right? I know who you are because I am that girl. I appreciate that. And if you want to see what is the science and where is it, that's where it is. So you'll find that a great resource if you like to kind of look up the primary research yourself. And I do too, so I understand that. The best sequences for after 50, and many of these come directly from Hot Not Bothered. They are flips so that if you are already strength training, this would be a good protocol for you to look at your weight training, your habits. Does your workout abide by this? Does it match this? Is there some reasoning behind it? Was it designed by research or based on research that used subjects who were women in perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause? Because 39% of all exercise and sport science research is based on women subjects. That's it. So if we are optimistic and we say half of that, 50% is women in perimenopause and older, that's 20% of research. But in most cases, in textbooks, that is not what students are reading. In certification exam books that they're sent to study before they take the test, that is not necessarily what is populating those books or pages. Right now, there's not a chapter in a textbook about hormone balancing exercise in existence. So we're working on it. right? But it's a slow process to write a textbook and then publish it and make sure that it's up to date. So be sure what you're doing is for you, about you, based on research of people just like you. In most cases, in exercise science studies, athletic, fit young men in their 20s are the most often used subjects. It's beginning to change, but you really have to look for it. So the best sequences, things to remember. So things to consider. Think about your own workout right now if you're doing it. You want to work from big to small muscle groups. So that's in part, it's a safety piece, but for us, if we're talking hormone balancing, we're talking about the reason being because the big muscles will affect your blood sugar levels and stabilize that, which means your insulin sensitivity is improved, which means your fat storage halts and your fat burning can improve. That's a part of the big reason not to go in and start using bicep curls, right? You don't want to do that until very last in your workout. If any of you saw my post on Instagram today, I was doing a bicep curl. That should be a very last thing you do, and meaning that if you're very busy and you have 10 minutes to strength train, it doesn't get done that day because it's not important. Those muscles will get used when you're doing big major muscle groups because they have to participate to assist. Essentially, they help to stabilize, and they're secondary muscles in that work. The next one is full body beats part body. So for those of you doing strength training 4 and 5 days a week, I'm hoping you're not doing your whole body every day. But I'm thinking that the only safe way to do that is to do upper body one day and lower body the next. That is not your best friend for metabolism. The best boost in metabolism comes from a workout that works your upper body and your lower body together on the same day, because all of those major muscles covering the mass of your body will increase your metabolism the most. And for those people who want to be figure competitors or bodybuilders, the difference between where split routine came from is for them. What happens though is the time they spend in the gym 4 or 5 days a week are between 45 minutes and 2.5 hours working on only those muscle groups. That's not including their cardio or their mobility. So they may be in the gym many more hours than that. And few of us have that, but even if you did, your hormones would be in chaos if you were doing that, because the cortisol levels we're susceptible now to during changes in estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone are significantly less, meaning it takes less to jostle or imbalance our hormones to a negative factor, to the point where our sleep is disrupted. We're having hot flashes and night sweats. We are having belly fat and bat wings and seeing cellulite, even though we're eating well and exercising. That suggests that potentially cortisol is off and it's elevating blood sugar, sending off insulin. Some of that can happen because you're exercising too much, not because you're doing too little, but too much. And we by default often go to, I need to do more. I need to do more because I'm not seeing any results. And I'm here to tell you that we see typically in all of our programs, when we can get someone to buy in and cooperate and trust the process, when they do less, they feel better. And when they're feeling better, that's a sign they're on the right path. And usually inches change, weight changes, energy changes, sleep changes, all things suggesting internally hormones are changing. Whether or not we see lab changes from a lab report, we hear the results and see it, and then the scale and the inches change because of it. Circuit training is definitely a greater fat burning. So by circuit training, so those of you who are new to strength training, circuit training is doing, say, 8 to 10 different exercises in sequence, one by one by one, and doing very little rest between them. But what is happening is you might be doing a leg exercise and then a chest exercise and a back exercise, then a core, and then starting that process with a different leg exercise, a chest. So you are resting before you ever do your legs again. And you're resting 3 to 5 minutes, which is optimal to use your time very wisely and get a lot done without risking the fact that you're overtraining by stimulating that same muscle group too many times in a short amount of time. And you're getting adequate rest between sets. So remember, that was an important part of recovery. After 50, the muscles need about 3 or 4 minutes is optimal. So you do a set, you rest 3 to 4 minutes before you do that same exercise or targeting an exercise on that same muscle group again. For alternating, opposing muscle groups, and that might be you were doing a chest press and you're doing a row. So that's a pull exercise and push exercise, opposing muscle groups. You might also do that. That's kind of all upper body exercise, but you could then do chest press and a leg exercise like a squat or a lunge, and alternating body parts back and forth and back and forth. We hit those body parts a little bit sooner. They get about a minute to rest between doing the next one. But that can be a nice organized way to move back and forth between a pair of exercises and then move on. Next pair, and boom, boom, boom. You're very efficient and effective with the use of your time. Beginners can do upper and lower body because that's better with more rest. For advanced, you might do an upper body, upper body. And the last one is pairs or trios. So you might do what I just said was both examples there were pairs, or doing trios of, say, all upper body, where you're doing chest press in a row and maybe then a bicep curl. That's all upper body. So there's a little bit more fatigue in the upper body when you do that 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You can also do it with legs. For an example, doing pairs like that, a chest and a back exercise, back and forth 3 times, there's 33% greater energy expenditure when you do that. And I'm here not suggesting that any one of these is the one, but that each of these done on a rotational basis can be optimal, because then your muscles get a surprise every time. So you're mixing it up. And you don't have to change every time necessarily. It's good to adapt to a new workout sequence and then do it again where you know what's coming, because you'll be able to work just a little bit harder and predict the right weight to grab when you get started. So doing it for a week or two, the same routine is perfectly fine. What is going to change within that exercise sequence is the weight you use will change to modify the workout and give you some variety. So those are just some of my favorite. Those are 6 out of about a dozen. 10 or 11 is probably the sweet spot, but then there are ways we start to mash up, and we might pull one together with another one and blend them. What's the difference? What's the distinction that we need to make between exercising now in our 50s, 60s, or beyond and earlier that really matters? Number one, moving fast, getting tired. And I hate to pick on boot camps, but I'm going to, because, I throw myself under the bus along with any of you who might be doing boot camp style activities where you're mixing up cardio and strength training, and you're moving back and forth and doing this and doing this. And maybe the buzzer or the timer goes off telling you it's time to switch. And that's a lot of fast moving. What you do want to be sure is within any setting like that, you slow down when you're doing strength training and you reach fatigue. So there's a big difference between reaching fatigue, doing quality movement. So there's muscular fatigue in a very specific muscle group, those major ones that affect metabolism, as opposed to simply moving fast, getting tired, doing as many reps as you can in a minute, or those kinds of things actually tend to make us lose form and technique and make us more likely to get tired, but also potentially injured. from when we were in our 20s or 30s, right? We could go all day working all day and then go work out. We need to change because our needs change. We're focused not because we're slowing down. It's not that. It's not that we can't lift as heavy a weight, and potentially we can lift a heavier weight than we did earlier because maybe that even wasn't our goal back then. But we need more rest and recovery, and we need that rest and recovery to happen between sets, and we need it to happen between workouts, or we need to factor in our life, because life can be a workout and stressful. And we sometimes ignore that, thinking only about our exercise. But for every client that I work with privately, I mean, we're looking at next week. In fact, right before we jumped on together, I talked to a client, and she's traveling 3 days next week, and she just came off of a sinus infection, right? So we have a couple days window here, but we can't really say, okay, well, let's work out really, really hard because you haven't gotten any quality ones, because that sinus infection was stress to her body. And traveling for 3 days next week is stress potentially then when she's traveling. It's a work related thing, but it's also work and stress. You know this, right? The 3 days getting ready to go. So, we have to factor that in because that will affect your ability to recover. Unfortunately, you and I probably are not lying on the couch having somebody feed us grapes between workouts. And that's not even the ideal food, right? But you get the picture. So muscular fatigue and tired, I really want to harp on this one, okay? So it's nag nag. But there's a big difference between, reaching muscular fatigue and getting tired. So also want to look at, do we want to focus on postural muscles, and we want to focus on imbalances. So, in the image of the left-hand side, not necessarily am I picking on the fact she's doing a bicep curl, but she's isolating a muscle. That's what I want to draw attention to. And isolating a muscle will result in muscular fatigue slightly more. On the image on the right side here, push-ups are often a default for body weight workouts while you're at home, no equipment workouts. They're very popular. And or because at boot camp, they're often used when you're outside, something like this, or you're using a step. But even her form, I don't want to get into and talk about because that is not good. But think about posturally right now. If you catch yourself and stop yourself frozen right now, potentially you're rounded in the upper back and you're rolled forward in a rounded position and posture. When we work the chest in a push-up, we encourage more of that closed body, upper body, tightening and strengthening the chest some more as opposed to pulling. So if you really want balance in your body and you want more open posture, not just for now, but also for later, 10 years from now, 10 years from then, you want to do much more pulling exercise. I always call it a 2-for-1. So I'm going to do 2 pulling exercises for every 1 push exercise I do. So I'm not a big fan of body weight exercises because unless you have a pull-up bar, it's really hard to get any pulling motion into those kinds of workouts. So be thinking about posturally, are you helping yourself stand erect? Are you helping yourself pull your shoulder blades backward and open them up? And those things are really important to your body balance, front to back, left to right. Talking about the split routine I alluded to earlier versus a full routine. So remember that split routine, if that's new to you, is how you might split your whole weight training workout into, I'm going to work my chest and my triceps today, doing bench press or push-ups and flies and doing triceps press downs and extensions and kickbacks. That's my workout today. And then tomorrow I might come back and I'll do my back exercises, or I might do my leg exercises. And then the end of the week, I would do those again, potentially. But look at what are your goals? If it's weight loss, if it's fat burning, if it's metabolism boosting, versus, do I really need and want tone and definition and be reliant on the gym? You want to watch out for what you're doing, and you absolutely do not want to stimulate the same muscle group 2 days in a row. Ideally, we'll talk about rest and recovery. You're waiting at least 48, but ideally 72 hours when you're over 50. Better results are had by most women who do that because better workouts are had. More workouts, more frequent workouts are not the goal. More quality workouts, fewer times a week, are a better goal. But think about specifically what you want. What transformation do you hope for from your strength training? How much time do you have? How much energy do you have? After you're working out, are you feeling better, full of energy? And what about your diet? Does it match the needs and the transformation that you want? Those are important things as well. So a split routine is going to take you anywhere from 45 minutes to 2 or 2.5 hours each time, and you're doing that 4 or 5 times a week. So you have to get in there regularly, because if you miss a day, you're kind of off a little bit more than if you don't. And you really got to think about, are you allowing adequate rest and recovery? Not just for the muscle groups, but overall, if you're working hard enough during those sessions, if you have a stressful life or job outside of that, it can be tricky to really allow yourself the rest and recovery. So if you are tired all the time, if you're dragging all the time, that's something to pay attention to, because that's really not what should happen from exercising regularly. You should have more energy than the next person, not be more tired. And if you're doing full body, it can take as little as 10 minutes. I can do it in under 10 minutes if I need to, and I do many, many times. And, up to 40 minutes, you have a lot of things you can handle and do in 40 minutes, twice a week, ideally. And the rest and recovery time is definitely there, because twice a week, you want to do something like a Monday and Thursday. So you've got adequate time between the Monday, Thursday, and then the Thursday, Monday again. And it's not too much time, because we're assuming you're not sitting on your laurels the rest of the time. You're doing something else. You're an active person otherwise as well. So we do want you to have a more well-rounded program than simply strength training. So it's really important that, you get a handle on what really is working. The recovery time is key. And after 40, for sure, is for some people, that's when it starts. Depends really on when perimenopause might start for you. But after 50, and this is true of men too, so they don't necessarily go through perimenopause, but they do lose some of the hormones that help recovery happen sooner. So a 50-year-old male or female is not recovering as well as we did when we were 20, unless for some reason you are far more athletic than you were then. And then you may not have something to compare it to as far as what you needed for rebound. But that recovery, remember, is 4 things. It's between sets of exercise, and it's between workouts, but you also factor in life the same day. If you have major meetings or a major travel schedule or stressful things and projects happening, that may not be the day for a big workout. Maybe it's the day for a little yoga or a shorter workout. Between days, so between that Monday and Thursday, that's recovery in there. And between big weeks and months, and that's something we call periodization in strength and conditioning coaching. And that means we look at, say, a month and do, week 1, week 2, and 3 and 4. And 3 of those weeks might be, it's okay, it's moderate, it's harder, and it's hardest. And then in week 4 is a little, let's cut back and we take a little bit of a break, so it's an easier week. Because then when you start that week 1 again the next month, you're more fit than you were the first time, but now you can start again and build and build and build. So it's more of a stair step smartly, because otherwise, if you don't take those, what usually happens is injuries are more likely and illness is more frequent. So if you're always just trying to get better and better and better, the best way to do that is actually build rest in. It's like taking your vacation days at work. Take them regularly. It's really important. Recovery aids, things that help rest and recovery, in addition to just time away from exercise. You can move, but some workouts are recovery and some require recovery, right? So when you work really hard in strength training, what you need is a recovery workout. And for you, that might be a nice, easy walk or a swim, or it might be yoga, might be a bicycle ride. So lower impact, easier on the joints, but getting circulation going. Nutrition timing is also really important. So after exercise or before, for women particularly, even more important than for men, simply because we are not as good about ingesting protein. So if that's been you or your habit, about 60 minutes after a workout, you ideally want to wait 60 minutes. Don't eat right away and don't take that protein in right away. If it's been a tough workout, we have a protein synthesis blunting effect that's kind of in effect for about 60 minutes, and then it lifts. So that's a perfect time between an hour or 2 hours after a tough workout to get in a high protein meal so that you can rebuild and repair those muscles in recovery. If 80% of the time you do that, and 20% of the time you have to eat, sooner than that's just not going to work, that's okay. But, abide by that 80-20 rule when you can. The nutrition type is really important. Quality protein is what you want to get in. You want to avoid things like sugars, including fruit. Fructose stores fat. So after a workout, you're primed to store fat if you take in fruit. So you want to make sure you have some protein, a tiny bit of what we call resistant starches with it can also help, but primarily the biggest thing you need to look at is an overall nutrient dense intake. So lots of vegetables, lots of fiber, lots of protein. Nobody ever overdosed on vegetables. So if you can kind of start shifting away from fruit quite so much and more to vegetables, you're going to be in much better shape, pun intended. You want quality protein, so it's got adequate essential amino acids, that's EAA, and the branched chain amino acids in it, because that's really what the building blocks of muscles. Certain ones, and we're not going to go down that rabbit hole, help, and they really need to be present in the food you're eating in order to get those muscles rebuilt and repaired. Overall nutrition, we now know that for bone density, as well as for muscle, joint health, and brain health, it's all about the whole picture. We're not really isolating, okay, it's got to be calcium for better bones. Calcium is important, but so is vitamin D and magnesium. And so is the whole spectrum of what you get from having a diverse and big content of plant-based foods. Nobody eats enough vegetables. I mean, nobody is eating enough vegetables, self included. I try to be really good, but most of us will fall off at some point when we travel or we get in a tight spot. That's the thing that's hardest to plan for. The rest, 72 hours, is favored over 48 in terms of results for exercise, because rebuilding and repairing is important. If you're ever starting a workout, specifically strength training, and you're still sore from the workout before, your muscles are still breaking down. They have not repaired. And if you go into another workout, you will do more damage, because exercise is a breakdown and it causes micro tears. So you've got to make sure that you're repaired and rebuilt before you start that next one, or you're bringing yourself closer and closer to an injury as opposed to boosting metabolism and getting better. You never want to say these words, and I've heard them too many times. I was in the best shape of my life right before I got hurt, right? And those happen with some of the programs that are probably top of the tongue for most of us, and I'm not going to throw somebody under the bus, but if it's a high intensity class all the time, every time, and you're not recovering from it, or you're really sore, take a second look at that and whether it's really serving you. Sleep is the ultimate, like that's the king and the queen of rest, right? So prioritize that, meaning let yourself or make yourself, depending on who you are, go to bed at a good time. Don't depend on screens to keep you awake. If you had no screen time 90 minutes before you usually go to bed, what a lot of participants in my current month right now of group coaching are saying is, I'm falling asleep an hour before I thought I would, because I'm not getting that external stimulation from something else. And so, think about that. If you're just keeping yourself artificially up, you probably will benefit from more rest. And that is when your hormones kick in naturally to boost metabolism. You'll have more growth hormone, which is important for muscles. You'll have more testosterone, which is important for muscles. You'll have less cortisol, which means less fat storage. That all happens overnight, or it doesn't optimally. So if you're really kind of in a void for sleep, work on that one. Stress reduction or coping, trying to reduce your overall stressors. I mentioned, not just rest between your workouts, but rest between your life too. If you've got a lot of stressors, that's probably getting in the way or inhibiting a bit of your recovery process. And it's tough if you're driving all the time yourself. I mean that. And you're not able to recover. So look at how can you improve your coping skills. Mistakes that I see most commonly, and this is 34 years of looking back on my own clients, on my own self. So if I did something wrong, I'm sharing it here. And, on those 250,000 training sessions that I was supervising, and now as I consult with gym owners and personal trainers or directors building their own programs, this is the most common problem. What I hear on this side from trainers is they're not making any progress, and they can't get this compliance. So these are very familiar and common. Lack of muscular fatigue. We're moving a lot, but we're really not ever doing quality work. So look closely at whether you're reaching muscular fatigue. There's more frequency than is good for us. 3 to 4 times a week, if you're doing that, it's too many. You haven't got enough rest in between those workouts. I'm talking specifically strength training here. So between strength training, you could do some interval training or some longer or moderate walks. So depending, you need low level long walks, you need moderate intensity, moderate duration, and you need short high intensity works. Those are cardio bases to cover, and I won't get too much into that right now. Random sequencing, walking into the gym when it's really crowded, you know what that's like. And sometimes it is, I'm going to use this one because it's open, this one because it's open. And if you have a little bit better plan and here's the exercise I want to do, but if the leg press is full, I can do a squat with something else, or I can do this for my lower body instead. That's better. So getting a plan. Saving energy, because I'm doing 3 sets, right? So I'm going to go light on this first set. If you've ever said that to yourself inside your head or out, rethink. So ideally you want to do a good warm up so you're already ready to go. But that first set, you need to pick up a weight that you will reach fatigue at. It's the second and the third set you are still going to reach fatigue at, but those are where you go lighter if you need to. But don't worry about them now. This is one of the only places in the world where failure is success. So you want to fatigue on set 1, fatigue on set 2, and fatigue on set 3. Do not save it for later. Body part versus full body routine. I think we covered that one. Daily weight training and other interference from high intensity interval training. So high intensity interval training is also a little bit harder on the body. It does more micro tearing, and there's a little bit more breakdown from it. So if you're doing, really heavy weight training and you're doing HIIT and you're doing weight training and you're doing HIIT, you may want to mix that up a little bit with some lighter activity, shorter and or longer lighter activity, and definitely can be more hormone balancing, which will help you also decrease risk of injury. Inadequate type or timing of food. It's like if you're trying to lose weight, and oftentimes we go to, I want to burn more calories and take fewer in. And that's not my recommendation, by the way. That is totally the opposite of what I recommend. But that's like having your foot on the gas and then the brake at the same time. You're telling your body, go faster when you're exercising, and you're telling your body, stop when you eat less. Your metabolism will slow down when you eat less. And that can be good if you are specifically during a period of time being nice to yourself and not exercising hard. A little break from normal nutrition and normal exercise is a reset. And it can be very hormone balancing to do that for a week or 3 days even. But trying to work hard and to eat less is a disaster for your metabolism. Quantity versus or frequency versus quality. So we've talked about this one too, making sure you're working out every single day. I'm going to do something every single day. And or you're just doing more of it. I'm going to go longer. I'm going to do more sets. I'm going to do my upper body, my lower body, and then I'm going to do it again. I'm going to go to a class and they're doing strength training and they're never 2 days in a row. So you may go into the weight room day one or Monday, and then on Tuesday, say you go to a group fitness class and they're also doing weights in there. You should excuse yourself because you did weights yesterday and you do not want to do them 2 days in a row. Not even if you didn't get arms in and they're doing arms. Can I do those? No, you can't. Because if you did chest and back, you used your arms. You need 2 days between. So if you're doing too much, you're not seeing enough results, cut back and do it better. Do less. Completely functional work without goals specific mash. And what I mean by that is, if you're doing that functional exercise that's, encouraging more balance, you're doing more one-legged things, you're doing battle ropes and you're doing kettlebell swings and you're doing TRX and BOSU and lots of fun props and toys. You want to be sure that, okay, stop a second. What are my goals? And is that really helping me reach muscle fatigue, say, to match my goal for metabolism or weight loss or for bone density? If my goal is balance and just moving more and getting my circulation flowing, then those things might be perfect. But really stop and look at what it is. So I can't judge for you. I'm not doing that, but I'm just asking you to be a critical thinker about what are your goals and how does the activity that you're doing right now match those goals? And are you seeing the results you want? And if not, that might be suggesting to you right now, okay, time for change. Our activity preferences often dictate what we want to do. Sometimes people will say to me, well, I like yoga. So that's my jam. That's what I do for exercise. Or somebody will say, well, I like cardio. I love to do that. Or I love, blah, blah, blah. The point is we all have muscles. We all have bones, right? And we do need balance and we need mobility. So we really need to do all of them. We may be able to slide the scale and do a higher or lower percent of some of them, but it's really important that they're there and all present in some degree. So just a word about boot camps, and I'm really beginning to dislike this word because it's becoming so generic and it's got both a bad rap and a kind of a big general all-inclusive, this is what I need, right? Kind of a thing. But there's a time and a place for fast, quick movements. We do lose fast twitch muscle fibers twice as fast as we age, as we lose our slow twitch muscle fibers. So we have to work really hard to keep them. Fast twitch muscle fibers are those things that if we're going to slip on ice, they help us right ourselves. If we catch a corner of a rug with our toe on the floor and we misstep, but we catch ourselves righting ourselves, that's due to fast twitch fibers. If we don't have those, we start to lose them. That's when we see people falling more and more in the 7th or the 8th or the 9th decade for sure. So it's important that we keep those. We should start working on them right now for sure. But that place to go fast is not during your strength training. You want to go slow, you want to reach fatigue and do it safely. You always want to weigh a risk and reward ratio. My measure of should I do this for myself or should I do this with a client is always, is there a risk to it at all? And does the reward outweigh the risk? And if there is a risk, is there a safer way to do this exercise with less risk? And if there is, I'll do that. There's no reason to add risk to risk and injury, which sets us back, right? And makes us even more frustrated if we're trying to lose weight. I want to talk a little about bar type classes. And again, not throwing them under the bus. They can be very supportive of a place where you can get corrective exercise, focusing on small muscle groups. They can strengthen what we call small global stabilizers, which we need around the joints, and give you a feeling of confidence because you're starting to do something regularly. But a burn, for instance, is not evidence of better work or that you've reached some goal that you're after. Jane Fonda called and wants that back, by the way. It might be a good starting place. However, if you love it and you're drawn to it, but I would keep in your mind, you want to reach muscle fatigue with some overload. So you want to either add a little weight training to it with some heavier weights or graduate to that at some point. It could delay real improvements in your functional movement. Sorry about that. And your daily activities of life, because we don't use isolated contractions in daily movement. So you want to be sure if you're trying to do something better around the house or at home or at work that you need to do, that may not be the way to get stronger doing it. So it can't replace muscle overload that's done from lifting something heavy, or it can't add bone density. It won't significantly change your body composition either. The big to small muscles that I gave you, just some ideas of exercises. Squats, leg press, ball bridge, all of these have something in common. Compound exercise is something that uses muscles that cross two joints. So both your ankle and your knee, or your knee and your hip, big muscles will do that. They're not just a single, if you jump down to the bottom, a bicep curl or tricep press, calf raises, those are single joints. Smaller muscles, they have a much lesser impact on your metabolism. For hormone balance, this is the often forgotten thing that's not put into building a personal training sequence for you, or a group training class or a group fitness class. We want to think about how can we boost testosterone. It will go up and help us with lean muscle weight and metabolism with the right kind of training. Growth hormone will go up with the right kind of training. Both of those we produce less of as we age. Insulin sensitivity, right? I don't mean insulin will go up, but insulin sensitivity will go up with increased stress and food cravings. Insulin goes up, but the sensitivity can go up with increased, weight training. Regular frequency is really important, and it can be as important as regular frequency of eating high quality foods. So you want to be careful about that one. Cortisol levels, the stress hormone, go up with the wrong type or timing of exercise. If you're doing too much, or you're doing high intensity interval training at night, that could really be harmful to somebody with goals of reducing stress and losing fat later in life. So if you're midlife and beyond and you're struggling, but you're exercising, it may be the time you're doing it, not what you're doing. Ghrelin and leptin, two more hormones that piggyback off of cortisol, that I talk a little bit more about in both the After 50 fitness course and in You Still Got It Girl, the book, depending on how you like to consume. So if you're new to hearing about those, it's the hunger hormone and your satiety hormone. They both go out of whack if cortisol is elevated in a negative way. So let's say metabolism is your goal. You want to work big muscles, then your smaller muscles, and then lastly, you do those fun, I'm doing variety, right? That's when you throw in your tools and your toys, maybe for balance, or the BOSU, or your TRX, or your battle ropes. Those kinds of things then come in. And looking at that, you can do big muscles in 10 minutes. You can add small muscles and get a good workout in 15 minutes, but it also fits into a time clock. So you could say, okay, my goal here is to get a good workout in 10 minutes today. Then you would focus on that middle of the target. Or you say, no, today I have a little more time. I've got 20 minutes. Then you may be able to get it all, or on a weekend day, you take advantage. You've got 40 minutes. You definitely get it all, and you can get it all really good. Your activity priorities, as opposed to your preferences, really might dictate what you should do. So strength training after 50 should move up to your higher priority list for all exercise. I mean, schedule those first. And then mobility may be an issue if you don't have full range of motion, or you're feeling like you're not comfortable in certain movements. Things just hurt your knees or hurt your hips. Most likely you're compensating somewhere. You might want to focus on mobility first, and then we add stability, which is the weight training, to it as the best way to get started. That's your best foundation. During strength training, when you're just getting started, you've got this neural component that's really the big reason you're going to make progress early. And that means start with light weights, because the neural component is about your brain sending the signal to the right muscles. It's just about getting better at it because you haven't been doing it, creating a new pattern, laying it down. And there's no reason to go heavy right away. It just causes risk of injury. And going light doesn't accelerate or decelerate anything, but going heavy could accelerate injury. Next step, usually we do higher repetitions, lower weight to keep you safe and focus on muscle endurance. And then we do muscle strength. As you've gone for, say, 2 weeks there in neural component, or 3, and then 2 weeks doing muscle endurance, by the 4th or the 5th week, then you're in muscle strength. We can start going a little heavier, fewer repetitions, and then eventually we may add speed. And that helps bone density, helps weight loss, but it also kind of starts to add a little variety about the time you need it, right? You've been lifting weights, now you're going to start to see some changes, and that we call power. And you evaluate your needs for change and rotating. And that's kind of 2 weeks in each one of those stages. Great progression, giving your body a chance to adapt at every one of those stages. So it's all about weight training, mobility, and cardio. As long as you don't have any movement restrictions, you want to jump right into weight training. Get started. If you've got some movement restrictions, you want to start with your mobility, and eventually you will add the strength, and that will give you the best marriage of both. And that is what we call stability. Your ability to handle, a stable environment, or be one for yourself, even when the surface you might be standing on is unstable. And cardiovascular disease risk reduction will happen somewhat from strength training. It can also happen from some of the activities that cause mobility because they decrease stress if you enjoy them, but you're going to need some kind of breathlessness in your workout. And I'm going to share a little bit from here on out about the stronger results. So this is 8 weeks. Nothing changed for these women except the strength training component. All we ask them to do. So on their own, they may have changed their diet. They may have changed cardio, but we didn't ask them to do anything except for the workouts. And here's what happened. So we had 27 people give us feedback, and 100% of them said, yes, I will continue strength training on a regular basis. So that in itself says a lot about how they felt about the changes and the time commitment being worth it and valuable for them. Weight training induced changes. 70% of the people who responded, so this will give you a little bearing on what I'm about to tell you, didn't change anything else about their exercise program. 65% did not modify their diet during the program. So you can see a few more did, but based on some of the comments I'm going to share with you, you'll see how that happened. In less than 90 minutes a week. So just a reminder, we gave them 2 workouts, and they were often about 30 to 35 minutes. There were a couple that were a little bit longer, 35, maybe 40. And then there were a couple that were even shorter than that. So I say 90 minutes, but I'm erring on the long side. It was really 60 or less. The average loss of body fat was 2%. And I'll talk about the asterisk in a second. The average inches lost was 4. One woman lost 10. Yep. So that was our standout. Certainly, there's always a curve breaker, right? And that was definitely it. Average weight loss was 2.2 pounds. Not tremendous, but remember, if we talk about the difference between fat loss, muscle gain, what is that difference? Not seeing muscle increase. So I can't give you an average in that. It was tough. Some of the women actually didn't get the body composition done. So I can't give you an average as far as muscle increase. Some participants were there. I want to, let you know that goal wise, right? Some of us want to lose weight. More of us potentially want to lose weight or lose fat. But we do have people, and we had people in the group who didn't necessarily need to lose weight or want to. That wasn't their goal, but they were there to increase their lean tissue and get stronger and work on bone density and balance while they did it. So, losing body fat or losing weight wasn't a goal for everybody. So I want to make sure you realize that we didn't call this a weight loss class. This is really truly about becoming stronger, no matter where you were. 96% loved their arms when they were done. 96% made a comment about their arms and saw or felt improvement in leg tone within 3 weeks. 3 weeks. The 12-week program we are launching is starting October 1st. So that was our beta group. And I'm going to share some more comments and just in their words, quotes in a couple minutes. But we are launching a 12-week program. This is the full program. Instead of 8 weeks, you actually get 12. And what we're doing this time is making it a full-blown program. We wanted some feedback. I wanted it on what would be most helpful. And we began to get questions on, what about nutrition? What about protein? When's the best time to eat? And what about cardio? I'd like some support there. Or warm-ups and cool downs. Could you help us there? And so we've used all that to create the supplemental information. So you have 12 workouts over 12 weeks, and we've thrown in the guides to that as well. So we've still have the workout record. We have the pre and the post measurements of weight, body fat, and inches that if you don't have access to body fat on your scale at home, you would want to get. And then we created an Eat Stronger guide. So if you want to lose weight or fat, we've got information on how you do that, the type and the timing of the food around exercise that will help you. And if you simply want to gain lean tissue and that's your focus, it's how to do that and what you really want to pay attention to. And then we give you how to start and how to progress through the Stronger program. Because if you're brand new, obviously you're going to need a few more hints and tips about, what weights do I need? How much space do I need? Where do I want to start? Do I want to do the whole video or part of the video? Or do I want to do 1 set or 2 sets or 3? And what kind of weights should I have? How heavy? We're going to include all of that in there or have. And the progression is also there. So if you are somebody who, I've got a history of strength training, I don't need the basics, but I do need the, maybe not the ABs, but I need the Cs and the hints for, picking up where I am now and moving forward and progressing potentially a little bit faster. And so all of that is now included. It's 12 videos for 12 weeks. You do one twice. How to start, progress, to eat stronger, how to use cardio, both starting and progressing in that as well, with interval examples that you can mix up. There's a workout tracker and reporting sheet that we're sharing in the Facebook group. And what we've done is set up a collaborative, but not a competitive environment. So it's not, you against you, but actually what works really well, we found, is when everybody relies on each other. So we'll release prizes, after 4 weeks. That would mean, 8 workouts and everybody reporting, not necessarily that they got them, but what happened. If the wheels fell off the bus that week or they got sick and couldn't do it, it's that you're reporting and you haven't gone MIA. That's really what we're looking for, because, over 12 weeks, 24 workouts, we're really hoping you get all 24. I'm asking you now, in fact, to start thinking about Thanksgiving week. What are you going to do? If you typically do your weight workout on Monday and Thursday, there may be a turkey in your way. So how are you going to overcome that? What days will you change? We're really going to help you kind of get through that. And the goal is that you who might participate get to January 1 feeling already like you were starting your year ready to rock it. So unlocking prizes, with successful group effort. And that means not that you've done everything perfectly, but that you're still reporting, you're still in it, you're still consistent, you're still thinking of yourself as somebody who exercises regularly, weight training. And you can get in now. So there's a special offer for right now for you guys who are here and or who are listening to the recording, but it's good for 4 days. And this is what we did with our beta group. The regular rate is $197, and we let everybody in for the beta group at $97 because we wanted their feedback and their testing. And super appreciated all of that feedback that's helped shape this. We're giving this to you all for coming tonight because you are interested, obviously, in strength training. But for the next 4 days, you too can do it at $97. And if you're here, by the way, and you're in our cafe membership, we're doing something even more special for you. So to our membership people in the cafe, I will post that in the membership area for you. So don't jump in too quickly, all right? So in the next 4 days, you can do $97 if you want to go to, I'll give you the URL in just a second, but the code is Stronger50. You can still sign up after that 4 days is over, but the price will go up. This won't be here. So you've got until the 16th, the end of the 16th to do it. So fast action takers, right? The value is $497. It's something I will be there in live. So many of you may or may not realize it, but in our Facebook groups, I'm in there. I'm commenting. There is nobody masquerading as me. And for a very short period of time, I had a helper who was in, and she was using my login. And I said, don't do that. Log in as you and comment as you, but don't comment as me, because I want to always keep it clear that I'm here actually for you. So we start officially the first week of October. The materials will come to you right away if you do register right now. And you'll get the books that I've just talked about. You'll get access to the Facebook page in about 10 days. And you'll get access to the video pages, the house where you'll log in for all of those on the very last weekend in October. So the first happens to start, I think, on a Monday. So we're definitely going to have you in by then. So you're in that very first week. You can expect to get emails from me, Deborah at Flipping50, delivering that content. So if you do decide, make sure that my name is entered. Enter your name correctly, your email correctly, double check on that. My fat thumbs mistype all the time. And sometimes that's what the obstacle is, in somebody getting their emails right away. So we'll have special holiday support for you, and prizes for those people who fit in those 2 workouts when the turkey or the stockings are hung by the chimney with care. Just want to read this. So, or let you read it yourself. This is a comment from one of our 8-week participants just now. With Stronger, I felt so much more stronger, right? Slept better, felt better, clothes are fitting better without changing anything else. But it's made her more mindful of what I eat. And as I said, I think that change in eating was not conscious by most people, but it happened organically, because when you start one good habit. So if you're somebody who's tried to turn her world upside down January 1 in the past, I would highly suggest, maybe you only start with the strength training and leave the rest for a little later before you get that under your belt, and then ride it forward. Another comment, the best part of Stronger, just that, I'm stronger. Program held me accountable, motivated me to be accountable for me time, got me back on track into the routine. And the support of other women in the group was awesome. And I will say that's been one of the things that I didn't expect. It was phenomenal to watch what happened. The weeks flew by, plus a little humor there, no burpees. Many of you, maybe or don't, but you'll never see me do or demonstrate a burpee unless I'm demonstrating why I don't do them and what can go wrong. Another comment, I feel as though my energy alone is better. I know I'm more capable. So good to be in my body again, or feel good in my body again. And we had a lot of comments like this. you may start for the weight loss or for the bone density, or a doctor said do this, but it's the inner strength that no one can tell you about, that intangible piece that's going to come until you experience it. And that is, one of the loftiest goals that I've got for anybody who would start strength training. So if you're ready, this is it, flipping50.com/get stronger. That's where you'll find the product page, and you will actually there are 3 testimonials by video on that page. So if you want to hear a little bit more about who are some of the people who participated, is somebody like me, if you're asking that question, you can listen to 3 more people share their testimonial about their experience. And the videos I know I loved. So go and watch those if you're interested. You don't get to the page and you're not caught in a web at all. You can back out and no commitment made. It's just you'll get there. 50% off right now. So it ends on September 16th. That's your last day to use Stronger 50. And I will follow up with you with a recording. So you're welcome to share it or to keep it all to yourself. That is okay too. I'm going to read a couple of questions. I will stay on for a few more minutes. And if you want to stay on, fabulous. If you're checking off or gotta go, I totally understand it. We are long into this. So I'm going to answer questions as they come from the bottom and just hit on a couple of them. So here I go. Thanks so much for those of you who do need to jump off. Is this appropriate for someone who's been weightlifting for many years? Yes. So Kim, definitely, if you're, just looking for, say, I want some variety, or I want somebody who, plans the routine for me, as opposed to having to think of it on your own. If those are some of your motivations, definitely very appropriate. I would put myself in the boat with you. So I've been doing this for years. So I created it for a variety of needs, but give a lot of cues and technique. That's just my habit as a teacher, to remind you where should your weight be, where you don't want to feel this, where you do want to feel this, little nuances. So think about whether that resonates with you. If you've seen any of my YouTube videos, you may have a good idea of how I teach and whether that fits for you. Another question, is this program good for someone who already engages in moderate strength training? Very similar. I think I just answered that one. Do you have a resource for some strength training sequences, videos on your YouTube channel that follow this protocol? Most of the YouTube things are really just kind of spot hitting on a specific point, might give a quick sequence, but not necessarily. So you're going to find those more in our Muscles in Minutes, or in the You Still Got It Girl videos, or the whole flip on DVD. So hopefully that helps. How much equipment is needed? That's a great question. So really, I recommend 3 sets of weights, what I call a small, medium, and a heavier weight. Small weight might be, and I'll give you ranges, but that's difficult for me. So it's repetition ranges that's easier. Something you could lift 25 times. And that would be appropriate for your small muscles like shoulder work. We don't do a ton of it, but you might want it. Or arm work later in a workout where we've done a lot of it. When you're doing biceps and triceps, you might want some of those lighter weights. And those might be anywhere from 2 to 3 to 5 pounds, depending on your experience level. A moderate weight would be something you can lift 15 to 20 times. And that might be, depending again on relative to your small weight, might be 5 to 8 to 10 pounds. And then a heavier weight would be something you fatigue at 10 or fewer repetitions, unless you have some joint issues. And that really a lot of variability there. So when we're talking about a chest press or a bent over row, that could be anywhere from 15 or 20 pounds, starting there all the way up to, say, 30 or 35. Fewer of you are going to use that heavy of a weight, but in general, a heavy weight for home use, maybe 20 pounds, 25 pounds in terms of dumbbells. And if you're just starting out, you're going to err on the conservative side and go a little bit lighter. In addition to 3 sets of weights, you might find that during it, you realize once you're in it, okay, I need a little bit heavier weight for this one. And you'll probably end up with 4 sets of weights before you're done. But the other thing is resist a ball or an exercise ball. You know, an about 65 centimeter diameter ball is appropriate for most of us. If you're really petite, then I would go to a 55 centimeter. If you're really, really tall, you might go to 75. With stronger, could we do all the videos with free weights at home? Yes. Yep. It's made at home in my living room. But by all means, you could also take that on your phone or your iPad, plug it into your earphones and use it at your community gym or rec center too. And I've got somebody who's doing that. You are welcome. A couple of you thanking me. How can I train fast twitch muscles safely? The best way to do that was with some drills, and I think that was Kathy who asked that question. Those are really just like drills that you might do as a warm up or cool down after weight training. And honestly, nothing by accident. I just recorded a little video today that I'm going to upload to YouTube and post in a blog within the next 5 to 7 days. So if you can sit tight, I'm going to tease it a little bit on Instagram with it fast forwarded, but I'm going to show it in a blog post next week. So watch that, and you can do that really quickly. Will you have some live time training? And if so, what time will that be? For the Stronger program, there's no live time. I will pop in occasionally. So not on a weekly basis. This isn't live coaching on a weekly basis because I couldn't offer that at this rate for an exchange for my time. I just don't have the bandwidth to do that. But I will pop in at least once a month, and I will let you know in advance based on a poll from what's the most convenient time to hit the majority of people. And that might also mean that some of those 3 months it's in the early morning, some it's in the evening, to try and hit different time zones around the world. If you run on a regular basis, should you still train your legs with weights? Absolutely. Yes, because there are a lot of runners who in older age are fracturing their lower limbs, whether it's feet, ankles, shins, knees, femurs, because they haven't been doing strength training. Absolutely. Can we do this even if we already done the Stronger in 8 weeks? Yes, we will let you back in. So as a cafe member, however, wait for that coupon, okay? Lisa, is it possible to do this if you do not have a Facebook account and would rather not create an account? It is, Lisa, you'll have access to the video login page, but what you won't have access to is the collaboration, the access to me. So I can't do any personal emails. So your only kind of entry into the program will be, you know, from, you'll get an email that'll set you up. We're not sending out a ton of emails because I think we can all raise our hand and say, my inbox is full. Please don't email me anything else. And we're hearing that and trying to honor it. So the Facebook group is a way for us to conveniently go somewhere when we're on something anyway, and you can get it at your convenience as opposed to us sending things to you that kind of feel like a to-do. So I hope that answers your question. The answer is yes. And think twice about doing it because it'll really boost your participation. We'll soon be going for an MRI to see if I have meniscal tear. Can I still get started on this? I really need it. Kathleen, so I would say yes to that. And I would say in the Facebook page, when we get started with that group and you get accepted, we want to talk about how you can substitute. So if you've got a meniscal tear, I'm going to just take a stab that it's probably lunges and squats that are bothering your knee, but there may be substitutes. And so what I like to do is give a key, like when squats come on, instead of that, you're going to do this. And then when lunges are up, instead of this, you're going to do that. And that should help you be able to target lower body, but without as much risk and stress on opening that knee hinge. So that would be my workaround for you. And I think that'll work. I just started flipping 50 Fit You. Would this be something I would do? I would suggest hold off on it. So I would finish the program that you are in right now and potentially wait. And, you know, this is a 12-week program we will launch a few times a year. So wait until this is over, get fully through that program, and then try this. But I wouldn't try to do both at once because you'll have too much content coming at you. So I think you're set where you are, but hopefully got some good tips on strength training. It's a great question. Will you address performance goals in the program as well as strength? I will, especially as you ask. So asking in the Facebook group, tagging me on a specific question. If, for instance, you want to increase your running speed, or you want to play better golf, or whatever that goal might be, absolutely. So that would be fun for me to answer those questions, but we can definitely say, okay, here's how we would change the weight that you want to be doing, or if you're close to a race or an event, let's go here with this weight and then taper and use this weight and change things around. Absolutely. Great. I have a week of vacation during this time and won't have access to weights. Would this interfere at all with this program? Not in a terribly negative way. I mean, I would look at that thinking long term, we're talking 90 days and you're going to take, you know, you're going to take 7 out of that, right? When you're not able to do it. But, are there ways that we can get you to stay somewhat accountable by doing some body weight lunges or planks or push-ups, or finding something else that you can do just to still send that message that I'm staying regular? And it might mean you don't get the weight that week, but I would say 11 out of 12 weeks would still be a win, which is a great question. Thank you. And you're welcome to those of you who are saying thank you. Great. I'm glad it was helpful, and I do appreciate that. And if any of you are on and you have negative feedback, let's call it constructive criticism, I am also open to that. If it feels like you didn't answer this question and this was really a big one for me, or if I confused you more than giving you clarity, please share that with me. As we all know, my communication style may not have addressed, the way you like to listen, but if there's anything that I can follow up with you, please, as you get the follow-ups, love to hear how I can help relay the message in a better way for you. I'll read a couple more questions and I'm going to call it. So in 4 minutes, I'm going to jump off. For those of you who are still hanging on, thanks so much. Connie says, I'm doing the 50 online program. Can I do this? Or is it, and I think your message went off, this would still be very appropriate during the After 50 fitness course. So it's going to be much more specific. Those of you who are less familiar, the After 50 Fitness for Women course is really a lot about diving into what to do and why to do it and the education on it. There are some bonuses, but this program is done. Here's the sequence. We're going through the workout with you and really built for week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. So I would encourage you to do it. It could be the tandem great combination. Thanks. Thanks so much. Are these videos we get to keep and use forever? This is a great question. No, they're not. So this is a program you have access to. You log in to use them. They're not downloadable. I'm sure somebody who is cyber geeky could figure out a way to do that, but it's piracy. So you have ability to and access to these 12 videos during your 12 weeks. And then like the beta group right now has access to them for the next week and a half. And then they actually will all come out of the Facebook group and they will come off of the password protected page. And we will create new access and you will have your own personal access for the 12 weeks of the program. Once it's over, you no longer have access. But what I hope you will feel is that you understand sequencing and you could do this at home with your eyes closed, but don't do that. Keep your eyes open. Great question, Kathy. Thanks for asking that. I'm a cafe member. Is this program different from your Stronger series? No, it is the same program. So if you're here and you're a cafe member, you do have access to these videos. So all of our cafe members get extra perks and access to anything. But if you want the organized access to the, what will essentially be like 3 months of a challenge, and you want to participate in that organization, we had many people participate in the beta program who were in the cafe. You're welcome to do that, and I'll share how you can do that. Can you send the link to register again? I'm going to type that answer, which means I cannot type and talk, okay? So I'm typing that in right now. And for those of you who can multitask, good for you. I'm just kidding. And then I'll say it out loud when I'm not multitasking. So I'm sending that to all of you. And I'm going to send the code 2, which is stronger 50, and it is not cap sensitive. So I'm sending it to all, and that should be in your chat box from me, but it is flipping50.com/get stronger. And the code to type in if you want to register is stronger 50 to get the 50% off. PDF version of Hot Not Bothered only got to link for the hard copy. If you entered your name in and you don't order the hard copy, you will get the PDF. So Jay, it's coming to you. And you only don't get it if you want the other option. So it's already coming. Okay. Great. All right, time for bed. Somebody is elsewhere in the world, or maybe not. Maybe you go to bed as early as I do. Will this be repeated in the future? It will be repeated in the future, in January potentially, yes, but it will not probably be repeated ever at 50% off again, just an FYI. So thanks so much, all of you. I am going to stop right there. If you've got more questions, you know where to find me on the Flipping 50 TV Facebook page. You can private message me in there if we haven't gotten your questions. I will answer from that. So in case we're a little overwhelmed with response from messages, give me a little time to respond, and then absolutely I will. Thank you again so much for being here. Have a great night.